welcome to a new video. Now, as you've probably noticed if you've seen this channel before, I am a fan of Homestuck. My friends and I have read through the entire original comic, all of the Paradox Space comics. Just last month we finished Hypeswap Friend Sim, and we've even made a series of writing our own Homestuck fan story featuring our Trollsonas and other fan trolls. But the other day, while watching on Adam's videos about how survivable various locations in video games are, check him out by the way, his stuff's great, link in description, I had a thought. What about Homestuck locations? So, before we start, we need a few ground rules. First, the rules on users apply here as well. Our survivor is an average human being, here represented by the MSPA reader from Hypeswap Friend Sim. They have no special abilities, and nothing on them except clothes for an average environment. Our survivor's starting point in the lands is gonna be just where the player's house arrived, but the house won't be there, nor will the players. For other planets though, such as Alternia, they'll start at the address of the first character introduced on that planet, though that character, their house, and their guardian will also be missing. We'll also not be making any assumptions to add things to the lands themselves. If something isn't shown or stated, we'll just assume it doesn't exist. So, if the consorts on a land aren't shown or implied through, say, statues or the like, we'll just assume there are none. And finally, no alchemy. If we give our survivor access to alchemy, every land becomes exactly as survivable as all the others. Every location will get placed on our survivability scale. At the top, we have comfy living for the best places to survive. Then we have kinda living for places our survivor could live, but wouldn't be great. Temporary survival for places where they'd die eventually, but it'll take a long time. Death by starvation and death by dehydration, which mean they'll be dead in a few weeks and 3 days, respectively. Less than 72 hours, which means they'll end up dead before they can die of dehydration. And finally, instant death. You can probably guess what instant death entails. So, let's get moving to our first incredible, mystical, and unfamiliar planet with... Yeah, I mean, I did say I was going for every planet. It's not much to say here. I guess you can watch all of Adventure Time as it airs again if you want. There's no AI back here, so that's good. Comfy living, but good luck going through the horrors again. Now we're really getting started. That's right, baby. We've got weird environments. We've got consorts. We've got esoteric structures. We've got funky blue rocks. We got no water. Shit. Well, on one hand, if our survivors spawned in a random location, it'd be death by dehydration. On the other hand, our survivor spawns at the exact location of John's house, which is... rough. Yeah, our first actual land is an instant death because our survivor's just gonna drop like a stone. Lola looks significantly more appealing from the off. It's covered in water and our survivor actually pops in on the actual ground instead of well above cloud level. However, we are faced with another problem. All the water that's easily and constantly available is seawater, meaning it's undrinkable salt water. If we had something we could light on fire and a couple of containers, we could boil the water and let it condense in the second container to turn it into drinkable fresh water. But there's no sign of foliage anywhere on this planet, so a campfire is kind of out of the picture. That's it? No wood to light a fire, so our survivors just shit out of luck? No, because there's still something on this land we can use to get a fire going. The sand. According to Andrew Hussey, the sand here isn't just white sand, it's chalk dust. Chalk in a large block, like say a stick of chalk, is really bad as fuel. Usually just scorching and not really doing much of anything. In powder form though, chalk is actually really flammable. Our survivor will have to be careful with it though, as it can also be somewhat explosive. They just need to find something to hold a small amount of chalk dust in, a small crevice in the rocks or an old turtle shell bone, for example. Borrow something glass from the turtles, like a crystal ball, refract Sky's light through the glass, and boom, a fire. Now a survivor would just need a couple more bowls of shell bone and get some French water? Fresh, drinkable water. As for food, well, we could always turn to our consort friends. Betray. Yes, as you may have already noticed, there's a little loophole in my rule set. We can't use alchemy, grist, or house building, but I never said anything about not being able to collect boon dollars. The plan is simple. Find any lone, vulnerable imps, sneak up on them, and then subtly, oh so subtly, bash that motherfucker's head in with a big rock. Inelegant, sure, but if a 13-year-old can take down an ogre with a regular set of knitting needles, I think our survivor can stand a solid chance as a full-grown adult against an imp with a big rock. Collect the cash, trade it with the locals for some food, and you're going smooth from there. But suppose the imps weren't showing up. Perhaps there's no underlings arriving at all. Perhaps it's all stuff that's beyond our survivor's abilities to take down. How well could someone survive off of turtle consorts? Well, if we look at a rough height comparison, assuming Rose is about 5 feet tall, that would make the turtles around 3 feet tall, which happens to be about the size of a hawksbill sea turtle, which are about 80 kilograms. Now, I'll admit I'm no expert on turtle meat, but even if we assume a tenth of that weight is edible meat, that would still give us 8,000 calories per turtle, carrying with it 1.5 kilograms of protein. And since we already know how to make a fire here, our survivor can make absolutely sure the meat is well cooked. All in all, considering the fact that you do have to kill stuff to survive here, the lack of immediately available drinking water, and the risk of our survivor being burned by exploding chalk dust at any time they set up camp, I'm gonna put Lola in the kinda living tier. Okay, this one's actually really easy. Not easy to survive, hell no. There's no water at all, there's lava all over the damn place, the architecture would give an OSHA inspector an anxiety disorder, and the local consuls actively want to eat you. Also, there's a stock market, so you'll probably be glad to hear our survivors dying in 72 hours. Now, for this one, we'll assume our survivor can't get the forge lit, so we're just dealing with the frozen over version. So, to start with, the water solution is pretty obvious. Build a fire from the foliage on the land in one of the structures on it. Fill a container of some kind with snow or just cup it in your hands. Heat it over the fire until the snow melts. Boom! Water. As for food, we're dealing with the same situation as we had over on Lola. You can either battle imps for boon dollars to trade food, or you can eat the iguanas, which will have a good amount of meat on them, which is also protein rich and apparently quite flavourful. Huh. Anyway, our survivor can take their choice between the video game moral choice good or evil path and be kinda living on low faff. Now that the lands are out of the way, onto regular game constructs. Sky is first up, and initially it seems pretty good. There's water, both in large oceans as well as rivers and streams, so fresh water is easy to come by in those. And thanks to our old pal the mayor, we know agriculture is possible here. Though I have no idea what he was actually growing. Now, as for sources of protein, there's not really any natural fauna here, so we again look to the intelligent inhabitants of the land. Though I don't know what the Carapacians from Prospit and Durst are closest to, animal-wise. You'd definitely be able to get a large amount of calories from them. You may be wondering why I haven't bothered to actually figure out how many calories a Carapacian is worth. Well, there's two reasons. For one, Carapacians clearly come in many shapes and sizes, so there's not going to be a one-size-fits-all number of calories for all of them. And for 2, you have just a small, teensy, insignificant little fact that Sky is an active war zone that gigantic mutant chess piece monsters are fielded on constantly, so our survivor is absolutely not making it more than 72 hours. Frankly, good luck making a day. Yeah, it's an asteroid field, so good luck finding any food or water. Death by dehydration. At best. While we haven't seen any natural resources on Prospect, no natural food or flowing water, there is one thing we can rely on to survive. Hospitality. There's got to be a good number of Prospectians willing to help out some poor, starving human in need of aid. And if they need some help with something in exchange, sure, why not? Better than starving out on one of the several thousand yellow brick roads. Gonna put this in temporary survival though, because every version of Prospect gets its shit rocked at some point, and I don't think our survivor's gonna be living up to their job title in any of those situations.
Make her a member of the Midnight Crew.
And last up for our generic game construct, we have Durse. All the resource trouble of Prospect, but with none of the kindness. Go up to an average Dursite asking for hospitality and aid with no promise of repayment, and there's going to be about a 50-50 chance that the only thing they'll be filling your stomach with is knives. Gonna have to call this one less than 72 hours. Poor guy. All they wanted was a bite to eat. As much as I love figuring things out in a single biome land with set issues, it's nice to be on a normal planet again. We know Alternia has a large variety of environments ranging from canyons to forests to plains to rivers and oceans. Naturally occurring food and water is relatively easy to come by so long as you can avoid the aggressive flora, and shelter isn't too tough from the many caverns out in the wild. However, the biggest possible issue our survivor's going to come across is the local populace. Now, there is still good news, because even someone like the MSPA reader can make friends and survive here, so our survivor shouldn't have too much trouble, considering they literally are that guy. Our survivor does have to worry about never being able to bleed in public. Still, you can apparently live a decent life out here if you're careful, so I'll put Alternia in kinda living. I've got no idea how Mina survived here. No water, no food, no shelter at all, and probably less atmosphere too. Literally missing almost anything you need to survive. Instant death. And this one's even worse. Now all the resources are there, but all of them are in control of a cue ball-faced nonce. Our survivor could be in any situation here, anything from instant death to comfy living, depending on Scratch's whims. You know what, we're making a new tier. Dependent on Doc Scratch. Truly a fate worse than death. This has got to be one of the worst lands thus far. Our survivor has no food, no water, no shelter, the ground is made of jagged rocks, and while they're dying of dehydration, starving, and uncomfortable, creepy-ass music box melodies are playing throughout the entire planet. Literally all the time. It's like 3 continuous days of the last 5 minutes of a Majora's Mask run, that's, you know. It's gonna be death by dehydration, but I think anyone in this situation would really wish it was shorter. As a desert world with no rivers seen on it, this should be pretty obvious death by dehydration. But at the very least, you could hide out in one of the puzzle dungeons to get away from the heat, so that'll prolong things to the full 3 days, probably. Also, it seems there's iguanas here, so you can at least have some food to eat and maybe prolong things further with their blood. Okay. I want you to just look at the name. Look at this name. The Land of Brains and Fire. Do you really think this is survivable? Do you even want it to be? Everything is on fire. The only ground is grey matter. The way to survive on this land is go somewhere else, swiftly. On top of all of that, Solix's hive arrived here floating in the air, so you're just gonna instantly drop into the flames anyways. Instant death. Yeah, so far, this session's lands have been a genuine hellscape, and Lopi's no different. Hope you chill with vampirism, because our survivor's going to have to do a lot of that here. Yeah, let me just, there. Thankfully for us, the organs inside the ruins have kept the blood flowing properly and stopped it rotting, or our guy would be dead long before dehydration could get them. So, obviously, the only place our survivor can get water here is in the blood, which is about 50% water. Sadly, there's nothing we have that can properly filter the blood down to its plasma, which is about 95% water. So, hydration's gonna be pretty bad here. But, at least it's something. As for food, well, there's those building organs. So, unfortunately, our survivor is going to be slowly dehydrating from only drinking blood and eating the infrastructure that stops the blood from rotting. Incredible! And for all of that, I'm still going to have to put it in temporary survival, ending shortly after the planet's vascular system shuts down. Gross, horrible, on to the next hell world. Oh, it's fine, actually. Genuinely kind of nice. Survivor's drinking very sweet green tea, but unfortunately pure sugar doesn't exactly make for very good food if it's all you have. But goddamn, if it isn't better than rocks or organs. It's gonna be death by starvation here, but I'd rather die of starvation here than dehydrate on fucking Locam. Another pretty decent looking land. Nice green land, water as far as the eye can see, and some pretty light beams for our survivor to look at while they live here. Sadly, they won't be living here for long. With Loraf being an ocean world and there being seemingly no foliage to be seen, there's not any real way to make any fresh water. Also, apparently those rays are radioactive, so who knows what they're going to do to our poor survivor. Oh well, death by dehydration. Seems the middle castes have been given some pretty nice lands, honestly. At least, compared to the poor Lowbloods. I mean, what the fuck even was Lobath? Holy shit. So, Lotaf has a decent amount of foliage, as well as a visible river, though it's polluted. We could make that more drinkable by straining it through something like a shirt to catch any large pieces of debris, then boiling the water to get rid of as many of the smaller pollutants as possible. Probably wouldn't taste amazing, but it would be sterile and absent of most of the harmful chemicals it likely had before. As for food, there are big statues here that imply the consorts of the land are crocodiles. Stealth and a big rock should have that covered. So now, our survivors got water, food, and warmth, and they can also go hide out in one of the ancient courthouses on the land. All in all, somehow our survivor is actually kinda living out here in the troll session. It's surprisingly easy for our survivor to get drinkable water on Lomat. They need only make a fire with some boards from the bridges on the starting island, use some of the foliage to make makeshift bowls. You can turn some of the seawater into drinkable water. As for food, most palm trees don't produce poisonous fruits, with some producing coconuts, others dates, and honestly if I tried to list them all, it would take hours. Either way, food should be plentiful and varied. And if our survivor runs out of food on this starting island, well, they've got wood, they've got rope, sun-dry, or I guess sky-dry, some dates if they've got them, and build a raft and oars to head over to another island. It's not like they'll get lost, there's a sodding map in the sky. once again, some fucking how, we've got another kind of living. Strange how the Scourge Sisters have the best lands for a random Johnny to spawn into. Thus far, at least. And in great contrast to Terezi and Vriska before him, Equius' land is very simple and very bad. We've got a barren wasteland, no sign of water, no sign of food, no sign of anything usable for survival. Death by dehydration. Okay, so, you know how I've been making images for the Trolls lands? Yeah, I couldn't figure out how to make this one look good, so, it's just an image of Gamzee's face. There you go. Now, on one hand, I think it would be pretty neat and on theme if the various tents on Gamzee's land had, like, circus food in them. On the other hand, there's no on-screen evidence of this, nor any water shown anywhere. Death by dehydration, but you can get the Dragon Balls, I guess. Not to sound like a broken record here, but we've got no water, no food, no signs of hope for survival. How appropriate for the Prince's land. Death by dehydration. Ah, finally! Another land that isn't an obvious death by dehydration. If a survivor collects up the dew from the grass, they can drink it. Hooray! Unfortunately for them, as a human, they cannot digest grass. So close. Death by starvation. So yeah, of the Trolls session, fucking Vriska and Terezi are the only two with lands that are survivable for an extended period of time. Holy shit, who'd have thunk? And so, we return to normal Earth. How wonderful. Of course, there's going to be another comfy living... What's that sound? Oh yeah. The Condus. Our survivor is unfortunately arriving here on 2x3 Prong Day, the day the Condus directly took over Earth. So, I guess they're not going to be living that long. I'll call it a temporary survival, since it is still Earth. Our survivor here can still eat the food and drink the water here capably, and it'll take a few years for the ice caps to melt so far they can't live properly. And this is what happens after the ice caps melt. At this point, there's no foliage, a metric fuckton of seawater, and another metric fuckton of Imperial drones scouring the ocean for human life. And with our survivor being a human, living among one of the impoverished Carapacian communities, they'll be dead in less than 72 hours. But hey, at least the rules didn't spawn them in where Dirk's house should be. They just drop in the sea and get eaten by one of the oceanic Lusai. Now, sadly, as you could probably guess, the Four Nobles' lands aren't exactly very hospitable to life in general, let alone a whole person. But Lokai's actually surprisingly decent. While there's not any life on the land initially, and with no access to any trickster stuff, our survivor's not going to be able to make any more very easily. There is some clean, likely drinkable water flowing through the land in rivers and lakes. The survivor doesn't even have to worry about the whole balloon puzzle either, since the balloon in question no longer has an entire house balancing on it. Still, there's no food to eat, so it's going to be a death by starvation for our friend here. Now this one's pretty much the perfect example of how the Nobles' lands are going to be for our survivor. No food, no water, no actual life at all. Death by dehydration, but at least the poor sod can enjoy a light show. And yet, it gets worse. The land of Tombs and Krypton has all the same downsides as Lopan, but it also has the extra little problem that if our survivor travels too far down, they'll end up going from the planet's upper layer of air to its heavier, lower layer of Krypton gas, which is a simple asphyxiant. That's right, everyone, our survivor is not just dealing with dehydration, not just dealing with the hunger, but they're also stuck with the air that kills you. With no protection and no exact measurement on where the air ends and the krypton starts, our poor survivor is likely to be dead before 72 hours have passed. In comparison, Jake's land is marginally better. I mean, the survivor's gonna die of dehydration, yeah, but at least I won't suffocate. But yeah, no food, no water, not much to say. Now, our last battlefield was a fully developed planet, but still couldn't be survived on well. This is an entirely undeveloped battlefield, and the only representation we've seen of that is a 3x3 chessboard. So I guess our survivor's going to be working with a 3x3 chessboard, which isn't going to work very well. Probably just going to overbalance and fall off, which I guess would be instant death? Maybe? Probably? This might be a bit too abstract to rank properly, if I'm honest, but I'm putting it on the board anyway. And now the weird one. In Caliborn's session, each planet takes almost no focus at all, and Caliborn's job here is to destroy the vast majority of them. We've only actually seen 4 of them, in one image each, so I figure we'll just rush through them all. Starting at the moment Skya turns into a black hole. We'll assume death by dehydration for all the planets we don't know about. Earth again, baby! Unfortunately, the sun was dying, so all the water's gone. Bugger. Death by dehydration. Don't know anything about it. Death by dehydration. Also unknown. Death by dehydration. While we have seen this one, we've also seen its stark lack of water. Death by dehydration. Back to the void, I'm afraid. Death by dehydration. Finally, a planet with water, and turtles, and fish. Our survivor's going to do pretty decently here. Just steer clear of Finn and the cue ball bomb, and they'll be kind of living. And we're back to the unseen worlds. Death by dehydration. This one's one of the planets that got sunk immediately into the black hole. Instant death. A whole lot of shelter, but seemingly no food or water for our survivor. Maybe there's vending machines or water coolers or something in those buildings. But with no confirmation of that, I'll have to put it in death by dehydration. Another unknown planet. Death by dehydration. 10th verse, same as the first, and 2nd, and 4th, and 6th, and 9th. Death by dehydration. Sunk again. Instant death. I can't see any food or water here for our survivor, but there is that active volcano though. Less than 72 hours. No information on this place either. Death by dehydration. Black hole again. Instant death. And finally, the 15th planet. We don't know anything about it. Death by dehydration. Again. Overall, Caliborn's session is about as pleasant to exist within as Caliborn himself is to exist near. Planet 5 is the only survivable one at all, and even that's got one massive fuck-off bomb on it. But hey, what can you expect from the hardest session? And that's all the canonically shown lands. Couldn't really do anything for the Dancestors session, of course, since we've got almost no information on those lands at all. Pretty difficult to figure out how to survive on an environment you know nothing about, you know? Now, I figure it feels kinda weird to end on a speed round where the only results are no, and even faster no, and one single I guess. So fuck it, let's get self-indulgent out here. On this channel, my friends and I have a series called Writing Homestuck, where we've been drafting a story revolving around our trollsoners and fan trolls going through their own adventure in Spurb. Or Scrub, I guess. As a result, we've made a good few lands of our own. So that's right, we've got not 4, not 8, but 16 more lands to go through. Since any new viewers won't have any inherent understanding of the lands when I start talking about them, I'll include a short description of each land before going into how to survive there. Now, let's get into
The land of cliffs and turtles, home to the page of time, Masson Masson, covered in great emerald mountains and deep cavernous gorges. This is a land of extreme altitudes. As you might guess, the consorts of this land are turties, though sadly this place's usual hero has a bad habit of accidentally stomping them.
Sadly, for our poor survivor, there's no water on this land, meaning they're going to die by dehydration here. If it weren't for that, there's a lot more turtles here than you find consorts on other lands, so food's very abundant here.
The land of frights and carnivals, home to the Maid of Blood, Cereza Kermis. This land possesses bright, checkerboard patterned grass, and bright theme parks, fairgrounds, and circuses. The consorts here, however, are highly aggressive, and love to terrify and terrorise any unsuspecting rubes who happen across them. On this planet, the underlings are the ones under siege from the locals.
Now, the circus tents and amusement parks on this land do have concession stands, but they also largely contain incredibly aggressive consorts. Now, I don't want to assume how strong or capable our survivor is, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll a d20 and decide how well our survivor deals with that based on the result. Here we go. Ooh, a 14. We'll call that temporary survivor. Yeah, that seems about right.
The land of frogs and matrices, home to the bard of space, the Masahata. Once the forge is fired here, this land is but a simple desert. Beforehand, however, it is twisted and warped through the fourth dimension of space. The crystals of the sand stretch and intermesh, creating a lattice of glass-like polygons, each a small piece of this physics-defying world. The consorts here are warped as well, appearing and disappearing at random as they walk through three-dimensional planes. Even the light of Skya itself is refracted and shattered across the sky, the sight being best experienced upside down, standing on the underside of a crystalline cliff.
This world, unfortunately, is gonna be like Locam, but without the creepy music boxes. Death by dehydration, but at least that's an improvement, and the wonky gravity of this place will at least be cool for the few days our survivor has.
The land of Hearth and Hades, home to the Sylph of Hope, Nemena Perle. On the surface, the Hearth, this world is a lush and lively jungle, with plant life as vibrant as it is hostile. While everything on the surface wants to destroy any animal residence, the world below is even worse. Under the crest of this land is Hades, a realm of magma, flame, underlings and consorts hidden away in cramped caverns to protect themselves. The only benefit here is that death on the surface allows you a second chance beneath, which renews upon returning to the hearth.
Our survivor is going to have their work cut out for them here. The surface of this land, the Hearth, is the only place they'll be able to find drinkable water. Unfortunately, it's also home to insanely poisonous plants, plants that will eat them, or plants that will just kill them in any other way. Then, when they pop back up in Hades, they'll almost certainly end up being shoved into lava, set on fire, or brutalised by the incredibly strong underlings here. Not looking good for them. They'll be here less than 72 hours.
The land of platinum and cards, home to the Witch of Heart, Opal Luster. A perfect sphere of shining metal, covered in tarot, credit, and playing cards. The objects from the cards are spread across the land as well. The consorts here live within card houses, with precious metals sealing them together. beneath the violet rings orbiting the land.
You might think this is going to be another simple, brief death by dehydration and move on. However, our survivor does have one possible source to find water. Literal depictions of the tarot card The World. All they need to do is find a world and a receptacle of some kind, and take it to the denizen's residence. Saying that 5 times fast. The gigantic gold credit card sticking out of the land. You see here. Sky's light reflects off the card and the ground, boils the water of the world, and the water can condense into the receptacle. With that, and the consorts to eat from, Lopac is actually decent for temporary survival. Only temporary, because there's only so many depictions of the world.
A land of skies and waterfalls, home to the air of light, Julin Kira. This world is a vast ocean, running so deep you can see all the way through most of the land, with only the world's core visible beneath the waves. Above the sea's surface fly a great many islands, each with their own size, shape, and secrets, and larger amongst them little lakes and rushing waterfalls.
Fortunately for our survivor, they'll be arriving on one of the larger islands. The islands have tropical foliage on them, which could be used to boil and collect the water, classic drinking water setup at this point. Unfortunately though, there's only going to be so much edible foliage and so many consorts on this landmass, so it's only going to be a temporary survival.
The land of soft and silence, home to the Mage of Hope, Arthur Pendra. The ground in this world is soft and cushioned, but the consorts have nothing to do. For those living here, this planet is deeply dull, without hope for ever engaging activity.
Sadly, this one is going to be simple. No water, only consorts for food, and very little shelter. But hey, at least the survivor's going to be parched and comfy, I suppose.
The land of traps and tunnels, home to the Mage of Rage, Xander Shade. There are no signs of life on the surface of this land, though there are large bear traps strewn across the planet. Beneath the ground, caves snake through the rock, making homes for the consorts here. But watch out, there are traps of all kind throughout the tunnels. The underlings here are strange, however, moving in jittering, stop-motion patterns.
Once again, this is another land with no water and very little in the way of food, and this time it's not even comfortable. On top of all that, our survivor is going to have to brave everything from tripwires to novelty oversized mouse traps. I doubt they'll survive 72 hours. Now that we've seen the initial session from this story, let's take a quick hop over to the post-scratch session, starting with... Afteris is this session's troll planet. It's basically Alternia, but with the Condus's personal idiosyncrasies removed and replaced with extra military fervour. Still, if someone like MSPA Reader can brave Alternia, our survivor should be able to deal with Afteris decently well. Admittedly, it will be harder because this is basically Warhammer 40k Alternia, but I'd still call it kind living.
The land of angels and avarice, home to the Maid of Hope, Exmir Pira. A planet covered in ancient marble palaces, courthouses, and stadiums. The many halls are decorated with fine silks and velvets, fine china and pottery, and the dining halls filled with meat, wine, and exotic fruits.
Shelter's obviously not going to be a problem here. Frankly, it'd be harder for our survivor to get any sunlight. Sky light. Whatever. As far as food and drink go, however, they'll only have access to very rich foods and drinks, particularly stuff like cake, caviar, expensive wines, that sort of thing. Still, there will be some stuff like Wagyu beef in there, so they'll be able to eat well. Frankly, you just got to be careful about stuff like gout. I think it's the comfiest living you get.
The land of ghosts and divisions, home to the thief of time, Louis Masson, a world covered in dead forests and deep canyons, populated only by the spirits of dead consorts. Across the land stand huge, haunted mansions full of even more various ghouls, all bathed in scarlet red light from the sky.
The only places here you'll be able to find any chance of long-term survival is the haunted mansions. I hope our survivor likes sleeping on ancient, rotting wooden beds, drinking still water out of basements, and eating
succulent moss.
death by starvation. Low in the tier, because it might not even happen across a mansion with a flooded basement in time.
The land of Haven and Serpents, home to the Knight of Rage, Michael Shade. The majority of this land is covered by wild brush and grass, filled with snakes, both regular animals and consorts. Scattered around, however, there are earth houses of all kinds, sometimes clustered in streets or small communities. Beneath many of these stand entryways to a vast network of corridors and rooms running around the entire planet. Around Lohas's North Pole float 6 large islands, each home to one of Michael's students.
Our survivor's shelter situation is pretty much covered here. We're able to take cover in the houses or underground hallways. Food will also be a bit easier than most other lands, given that, along with snake consorts, Lohas is also populated by regular snakes, meaning imp grinding and trading aren't necessary here, and only matter for luxury. And as for water, the taps in the houses mostly work, though the water quality can vary from tastelessly sterile to undrinkably polluted, with most thankfully being normal drinking water level. There's another solidly comfy place to live.
The Island of Beds and Pestilence, home to the Prince of Doom, Mantep Nerglin. One of the large islands floating around the North Pole of Lohas, a vast sprawling hospital complex, the highest floors of which being advanced and ultra-comfortable private rooms, filled with sci-fi medical technology, even by Afteran standards. However, this place gets worse as it goes down, initially simply regressing to the point of only having simple equipment and rougher beds, and even lower floors growing mold and covered in stains. Near the bottom of the complex, you're likely to find pools of plagued standing water, sludge, and rot.
The upper floors here have delicious, nutritious food, clean water, permanent shelter and comfort, and around-the-clock medical attention in case our survivor gets injured. With the medical tech the top floors have, they could probably grind down a lich just from heel spamming. All they have to do is never go too far downstairs, or they'll contract every disease ever named and get to name a few more themselves. It's comfy living if you can take the hints of black mold patches on the walls and turn around.
The Island of Gardens and Tranquility, home to the Sylph of Mind, Leonid Esperi, one of the large islands floating around the North Pole of Lohas, a great and beautiful garden. The plants are all a calming blue, the water barely moves, the strongest wind is a gentle breeze, and nothing ever changes. However, further into the island, the garden grows wilder, the rivers fill with deadly fish, and the plants are covered in spikes filled with malice.
The rivers here are fresh water, which is good. Unfortunately, none of the plants near the edge of the garden bear fruit, mostly being decorative topiary. Further in, the plants do grow wild enough that you might find a few bits of fruit, but even near the centre, these will be few and far between, and the further in our survivor goes, the more danger they'll face. I'll call this a death by starvation.
The island of Padding and Greece, home to the Thief of Void, Mofla Raphael. One of the large islands floating around the North Pole of Lohas. An immense indoor playground, with miles upon miles of plastic tunnels, padded walkways, meshed rope walls and nets, and climbing apparatus. Hanging amongst the depths of this place are various lobbies, with cheap metal seats and tables, and usually old, barely reheated fast food.
If our survivor can navigate the tunnels and platforms until they manage to reach a lobby, they'll be able to find food and drink there. Not good stuff, mind you. If they're lucky, they'll happen across one with fresh pizza or drinks with some fizz still left in them. It won't exactly be healthy food, but there should still be enough variety and nutrition that the journeys between lobbies should keep our survivor in decent shape, even if they are eating awful reheated crap. Kinda living. A diet like that for the rest of your days can't feel good.
The island of provisions and commerce, home to the seer of life, Mazma Loiti. One of the large islands floating around the North Pole of Lohas. Cold white tiles and bright fluorescent lights can be found in all corners of this gigantic mall. The shops are stacked with products and staffed not just by consorts, but by underlings too. In fact, underlings tend to be a lot more peaceful here, though acts of violence are far from unseen, especially in the indoor parking stacks and back corridors strewn throughout the complex. Where would you drive from one of the car parks? Who's to say?
This is one of the calmer places to be. Unlike the other islands and lands, both the consorts and underlings are relatively peaceful. I mean, yes, fights do still sometimes break out, particularly when an underling can't afford something nice they wanted, but compared to most other places, it's decently laid back. Pretty easy to get food and water as well, with various food courts, coffee shops, a Greg's or something. You just need money. I'll say it's kind of living, since our survivor will need to constantly kill underlings to afford the food. Or they could get a job! Never mind. Unlivable. Instant death.
The island of slots and glitz, home to the Knight of Breath, Tachis Olgai. One of the large islands floating around the North Pole of Lohas, with brilliant, flashing neon lights, shimmering metal linings on almost everything, and the constant din of slot machines, arcade cabinets, all in attract mode, and the hum of every card game you can think of. This place is an overload to the senses. It's a super Vegas, baby. And with this house, you're bound to win big somewhere, right?
Let's go gambling! No, seriously, the survivor's gonna need to. The food here costs an insane amount of cash, more than they're likely to be able to grind. So instead, play the slots. It's your only chance to live. Warning, Shadeboy and Shadeboy affiliates do not condone excessive gambling, particularly under the threat of death. Do not copy the survivor's actions. These stunts were performed by a trained professional. Please gamble responsibly. It's gonna be a death by dehydration slumped over a slot machine. That's sad.
The island of unions and exploitation, home to the heir of rage, Isoges Skrien. One of the large islands floating around to the North Pole of Lohas. A sprawling office complex, each room almost the same as the last. A sea of cubicles, each with a desk, a computer, papers, pens, and a complimentary mug. Amongst these workspaces sit some more open-plan rooms, meeting spaces, small break rooms with mini-fridges, and other such placements of corporate life. The upper floors are those for the menial workers, and the lower you go, the closer you get to the CEO's office.
Hey you! Yeah, you! Have you ever wanted to live in a gigantic office complex with no way out, never go home, constantly be on the clock, and have a large portion of your co-workers literally try to kill you? No? Well, sucks to be you, Survivor, because that's where you're stuck. Now, Cheryl from accounting stealing that mac and cheese you were going to heat up in the office microwave is a matter of life or death. There was a water cooler, though. Not going above kind of living. It is an office, after all.
The land of loved and lost, home to the Knight of Hope, Perciv Pendra. This world is in a flux, where one moment stood a mountain, the next there is a swamp, then a desert. Every aspect of this land is changing constantly, only stabilized by the Knight building relationships with the consorts here.
This one is a very difficult land to figure out how to survive on, since the terrain is constantly changing. Setting up a stable structure here is borderline impossible, and the warping landscape also shuffles the settlements around. I mean, they wouldn't normally here, but that's if Perciv himself was here. His connections to the consorts actually causes the terrain to stabilise. But our survivor is not Perciv Pendra, so the land will never stop changing at all. Food and water will come and go, but our survivor can take some level of advantage of that. I will put this in temporary survival though, since it is only a matter of time before a full volcano spawns around them.
The land of sand and vitriol, home to the Mage of Blood, Caliborn, a colossal desert of red sand under a deep purple sky. Beneath the surface run caverns of jagged rock and rivers of blood, with consorts filled with directionless rage.
The surface is not remotely hospitable to life, so our survivor is absolutely going to have to venture under the ground. Now, we've already discussed that the blood rivers would be drinkable if unpleasant, but the only food available here is the consorts, who are even more aggressive than those on Lofak. But there's a unique problem here compared to there. On Lofak, the consorts are in the tents and don't often leave. But here on Losav, the consorts wander the caves, which is where our poor survivor is likely getting sleep. I'll call this temporary survival, because the survivor's probably not going to get caught on their first night. Probably.
The land of tides and jealousy, home to the heir of heart, Vivian Luster. A sea of bright green acid, dotted with islands of sand. Hidden beneath the ocean waves lie ancient monuments and weathered buildings, only revealed when the tide goes out.
It's a quick one here. No water, just deadly acid with nothing to neutralise it. Less than 72 hours, because our survivor is absolutely boned if it rains.
The land of valves and progress. Home to the seer of space, Iridia Arte. An immense factory world coated in concrete. Tall smokestacks pump polluted fumes into the atmosphere, and consorts are kept awake by the screeching grind and roaring clangs of heavy machinery. Legend has it, though, that beneath the layers of brick and mortar lie pockets of beautiful greenery, still able to spread if cultivated properly.
Our survivor's going to need to use some different skills to survive here. Instead of tracking down clean rivers and hunting consorts for food, they'll be using the machinery on the planet to manually produce everything they need. So I hope they're ready to drink bottled water filled with microplastics and eat processed foods with enough artificial chemicals in them to qualify more as lab equipment than as dinner. However, if they're looking for some more natural stuff, I could use the machines to disassemble parts of the factories to find some real greenery. Regardless, our survivor probably won't be able to get their hands on enough plant life to eat with every meal, so I'll call it kinda living from all the slop they'll have to make in the factories.
The land of wilds and waking, home to the Witch of Light, August Kirara. A vast and sprawling wilderness with forests, mountains, plains and rivers. The sky is a bright, shining yellow, and the ground glows with that same light. The consorts are all either horrifically sleep-deprived or out cold, their bodies no longer able to remain upright despite the constant glare from all angles.
Water? Check. Plant life? Check. Consorts? Check. Seems like this place is a pretty solid place to set up shop for our survivor. With all this work to do to survive, let's let the poor guy settle down and get some sleep. Oh yeah, the ground and sky are constantly glowing. Outside of building an entire house, our survivor could try and sleep in the middle of the branches of a tree. This way, hopefully, there'll be enough branches between them and the bright light that they can finally get some shut-eye. With this in mind, I'll call this kinda living. And with that, that's all the Homestuck planets, and some extras, ranked by their survivability. Honestly, I'm pretty surprised any of these are survivable at all, let alone how many and which ones. I mean, who could have guessed, going into this, that Terezi and Vriska would have the best worlds in their session to live on as a regular person? Who would have thought you could eke out a living in the land of light and rain? Who'd have believed low-tac would be better? Oh, well, that probably is a pretty easy one to guess. So, if you have any suggestions or corrections about this, leave them in the comments. Maybe if there's a whole bunch of them, I'll make a follow-up, fixing my list. Also, I've said it before, but go check out Homestuck. I'm not going to lie to you, I absolutely stole this video idea from him, and his stuff is absolutely great. But if you like this video, hit that like button. If you very much like this video and want to see more like it, hit that subscribe button. We upload episodes of Reading Homestuck every Monday or Tuesday depending on your time zone, and we upload other things on Thursdays or Fridays, again depending on your time zone. Other things like this, but we also have various other series as well, like Writing Homestuck, as I've mentioned before. We also do Dicey Deeds, it's our tabletop role-playing game series. We play a whole variety of games over there, such as Lancer, Call of Cthulhu, Morkborg, we've done Honey Heist, we're planning to do some other stuff like Cyborg in the future, maybe a return to Call of Cthulhu in a more pulp setting, maybe D&D eventually, probably not. We also do Diggin'Rimper, which is more of an improv comedy board game type thing, Danganronpa parody as you might have guessed from the name. All of these are very fun times, and I think you might like them, if you liked the general vibe of this. You can also follow me on Tumblr and on Blue Sky. On Tumblr, I post a lot of the stuff that I make for Writing Homestuck, which, you know, I do make quite a lot. For example, the planets that I've made here today, also on Tumblr. I'm going to be uploading the various planets that I made here today, including just Gamzee's face. But yeah, you can go check that out there. You can also, on either platform, send me asks, send me DMs, send me whatsoever you choose. YouTube does sometimes eat your comments. It's very frustrating when that happens, but if it does happen, you can send me something over on either of those platforms and I'll actually be able to see it. You can also follow my friend June over on Tumblr, Blue Sky, and on Instagram. She does stuff there sometimes. She was one of the 3 people who helped with the little blurbs about each of the lands in this video, the other 2 being my friends Arthur and Mason. But all 3 of them are very cool. You can follow June on those places, she does stuff sometimes. You can follow Arthur on Twitch. He streams Sunday evenings, generally. Time is a little shaky on it. He's working on it, but it's a general chill time over there. As of recording this, he's currently doing Omori, but you know what, editor me, if he's doing something else by the time this is going up, just edit it in now. Yeah, there you go. If nothing happened there, he's not doing anything different. But you can check it out, it's a relatively chill time. Yes. And I'll see you in the next video. Later.
The land of gears and glizzy. Ha ha, penis.